This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From NotAPipePublishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
Today's secret word is gorillas.
Before we get to today's interview with the brilliant poet Jennifer Rood, I asked you all to review the show and promise to read some reviews. The Ink to Film podcast gave us a review last week. Ink to Film is a great show about film adaptations of literary works. Check that show out after you finish this one. Link to that in the show notes. And they said, what a fun episode. Fonda Lee is such a great guest, and I'll co-sign the awesomeness of the Viable Paradise workshop. It was such an impactful experience, it's hard to put into words. Thanks, Ink to Film. Thank you to everyone who's left comments. And if you feel so inclined, please give this, quote, ancient, stupid, bald Mayo monkey, unquote, a thumbs up or some stars, and tell a friend about the show. Your generosity of spirit is greatly appreciated. Salutations! Hail and well met, readers and reviewers. Welcome. Today's guest is Jennifer Rood. Jennifer Rood is a poet who has lived most of her life in Southern Oregon, teaching high school English, social studies, and art. Last summer, she retired from a 30-year teaching career in order to make time for living a more contemplative life. She's a past board member and president of the Oregon Poetry Association and had the pleasure of serving last fall at the Oregon Caves National Monument as their artist in residence. Her more traditional poetry has appeared in many journals and anthologies, including The Literary Hatchet, Verse Weavers, Green Prince, and others. She also creates hybrid pieces of found poetry and art, which appear in her new book, Present and Speaking Everywhere, that is coming out from NotAPipePublishing, and I can't wait to show this book to people. It is so beautiful. I just got my hardcover before Jennifer has seen it. So this is on its way to you, and it should arrive any day. And you are
I'm so excited.
Oh, people are just going to love this. So thank you for being here. How's it going today?
It's going great. It's a beautiful day in Southern Oregon.
It's actually, if anything, a little too warm here. I am dressed for winter in a sweater, and I don't need to be. It's a gorgeous day today. So we always dress up in our costumes for this show, and yet we have to describe them for the folks who are listening on the podcast. So what did you tell everybody about your costume? Because that is wild.
All right. Well, I am dressed as a spelunker, and that, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, is someone who explores caves. And so obviously I have on my hard hat, my helmet, my flashlights. I've got a backup flashlight, kind of a utility belt thing going on. Definitely warm layers, gloves, because those rocks can be sharp inside the cave. Let's see. Also have some rope. Good to be able to find your way out if you're going in, and then also to be able to use it to climb up and down. There's some drops that you don't want to fall down sometimes. And let's see, good boots, camera. I'm just well prepared today.
Yes, it is remarkable how little the technology has changed from searching for the Minotaur in the maze.
That is true.
You've got to have the rope and you've got to have the torch. And then you're,
Right.
Yes. So I wanted to go extreme as well. And so I've got my whole skydiving gear. So I've got my chute, and I've got my, my flight suit here. And I am, similarly, if you're going spelunking, it can get cold down in those caves. And when you are skydiving, it's chilly up there. And this is not an appropriate thing to be wearing in my study at all right now. It is too warm in this, but I am ready, and if I accidentally pull this ripcord, it's going to be a big giant mess in here, but I will try and not do that during the show. So I wanted to ask you about this experience of being an artist in residence in the Oregon Caves. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. Well, I wasn't in the caves the entire time. I actually lived with the rangers um, at the chateau, the chalet. There's two buildings, and I never can keep those straight. There's a chateau and a chalet. Anyway, one's closed down. It used to be a place where you could go and stay, but it needs some repairs after a big flood, like
Mm.
nearly washed it away. Anyway, I got to stay in a little apartment above the visitor center with the rangers, and I did get to go in the caves a number of times. That was neat. All I had to do was tell a ranger I wanted to go in, and they would give me a free little ticket, and I'd go on the tour. Um, they also, rangers are cool, by the way. They invited me in to go do some cleaning up that they needed to do. You know, they've got lights in the cave, and they need to go in and restore the cave away from the algae that grows near the warm lights. And so they go in and they do some cleanup sometimes. They had to go in and do an animal, a fauna count, and we found a salamander and some weird little bugs. And um, anyway, I
Yeah.
had a great time going in. I had a great time hiking. It was just it was a lovely experience, and I got to spend 5 weeks doing it.
And they do that whole spiel about the boots and switching your footwear to make sure it's not something that's been
Oh,
exposed to the bats.
absolutely. In fact, the Oregon Caves is one of the very few in the nation that so far doesn't have the white nose. I forget
Is it
exactly
a
what it is, but it's a
fungus?
disease. It's a
Yeah.
fungus, maybe. I'm not sure. I am in the humanities. I am not very
Yep.
sciency, trying to be more sciency, but it's a white nose thing, and that's all I know. And yeah, you can't wear clothes that you've worn in any other cave. And right now, Oregon Caves is still clean.
Yeah, yeah. For folks
They're
who don't know,
festive.
this particular, I believe it's a fungus, but I'm not positive either. But it infects bats and will just decimate a bat population, more than decimate, obliterate a bat population in a particular cave. And so this has been spreading all over the country because of humans. We take it into these cave systems, and then it spreads from bat to bat, and it will just, knock out a bat population. And the Oregon caves still have this remarkable bat population because they haven't been hit yet. So please
Yeah,
take that seriously when the ranger says, don't wear those boots in. You don't want to be the person who do
right.
infect that cave system. Um, so when you were there, how long was this for you? How long were you there?
I I got to stay for 5 weeks. Since it was really cool. 5 weeks is a great amount of time for a residency. Um, at 1 week, I was still just getting my feet wet. At 2 weeks, I had hit kind of a stride. By 3 weeks, I was really producing. 4 weeks, I was starting to think, oh no, I don't want to leave. And 5 weeks, it was wrapping up. The season was changing. It was getting colder. We were anticipating snow, and the caves closed down for the season, actually. They're at 4,000 feet, and anyway, in
Yeah.
the mountains in the
So, and I
Siskiyous.
don't want to get too much into process, but what were you writing? What were the kinds of projects that were coming out of this experience?
So, yeah, this is supposed to be about writers not writing,
Right,
right?
right.
But
How we
but
procrastinate, but it often turns into what we're working
what
on.
we're writing about, how we do the things. So what I would do is I would get up every morning, have my coffee because that's a necessary thing.
Right.
Um, and then I would sit down and start journaling. And usually it was about dreams. Sometimes it was about plans that I had for the day. Um, then, after I had kind of written out some thoughts, then I could go back and look at poems that I'd already written and tinker with those maybe a little. But I generally didn't get new poems in the early morning. I had to go out into the world and then come back and have something to process.
Yeah.
Um, I did better writing in the afternoons and late at night. but I had to get it started. I had a journal every day.
So how much did you find that caves as metaphor or caves literally played into the work?
So my purpose there was to interpret the monument. And the monument is more than just the caves. So there's definitely the underground, but I spent a whole lot of more time above ground and hiking the trails and, just enjoying seeing the seasons change. Um, the park was central to what I was doing. So I was writing about history. I was writing about big time because going into the
Yeah.
caves is going back in time, to see stalactites and stalagmites that have taken hundreds of thousands of years to grow,
And connect. I mean,
and
there's a
connect.
wonderful metaphor there, right? That, that
Yes.
this deep time to reach this connection. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite poems that I wrote was it was a love sonnet between a stalactite and a stalagmite
Yeah.
that were moving towards each other through time, like not even being able to know that the other one was there, but then finally they meet and they kiss and they become this formation in the caves called the Grand Column. And anyway, and it just keeps growing. And so there's beautiful metaphor there.
Yeah.
Um, there's there was fun stuff too. Um, there is a tiny little bug that's a holdover from the last ice age. It's called a grillo blatted, and it doesn't do well in warmth, so it has to be in the cave, where it's cold, and or at least in the 40s, year
Yeah.
round. And it has antifreeze blood, and if it goes out into the, or I guess it's not blood, it's whatever bugs have, but it can't be in warm or it dies. And anyway, I love knowing that there was this endemic species to the cave that had gone underground because climate had changed and it had to find a place where it could live. So it's still there. I love the idea of a little bug. But yeah, I learned about bugs. I took a tree identification book around with me when I hiked. Um, it was fall, and so bucks were coming down the mountain. I got to see does and fawn. I did not see a bear or a cougar, but rangers reported that they were out and about. And
Yeah.
so,
And the
um,
cougars you generally don't want to see.
no.
If you see a cougar, probably something bad is about to happen because they're really
Yeah.
good at hiding.
The cougar has seen you first.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about that bug reminded me this last week I learned about the volcano snail. I follow a lot of biologists, scientists of various different disciplines on Twitter, and somebody was posting about the volcano snail. And this is a snail that lives in volcanic spaces in the bottom of the Indian Ocean. And
Ooh.
it feeds on this sulfurous, releases from these underground fissures that no, other species, very few other species could live
Mm-hmm.
in. It'd be super toxic. And it ingests this stuff and then produces an iron shell, a bright metal looking
Oh.
iron shell. It has these enormous antennae in the front, and that are bright red. So it's silver shell, bright red, pink body, and then along its foot, it's got these layers of iron that it is producing. So the thing looks like an absolute monster. Like it's terrifying,
Yeah.
you
How big are
know.
they? Do you know?
I don't know. And the pictures I'm seeing are so blown up that it's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe this thing is tiny, but it
Yeah.
looks like it's coming out of a horror film. But the fact that, same thing. This is something that found an ecological niche. The
Mm-hmm.
world changed around it. I mean, the
Yep.
atmosphere we breathe didn't even exist. It was all carbon dioxide at the time. And this
Mm-hmm.
thing went, yeah, but I can live on this, incredibly I guess that would be nitrogen rich. What's coming up out of those vents, that would kill you and I basically
Yeah,
instantly. And it's
yeah,
like, yeah, I'm cool down here. And yeah. So look, folks, look up the volcano snail. It's wild, and I love finding, learning from these,
hmm,
genuine experts about these things. I mean, this is the kind of thing where I saw it and I was like, is that AI? Like, is
yeah,
that real? Yes, our world has these amazing creatures in it. That are just totally fascinating, like that bug that has to
yeah,
live in 40-degree weather, and the caves provide that constancy. You go, I mean, if folks have not gone down to the Oregon caves, highly, highly recommend. Just such a cool experience.
it is.
So now that you're back and back in the world, what
Mhm.
has been a distraction that has been keeping you away from your work lately?
Oh, well, when I was at the caves, I would get up and there was absolutely no cell reception up there. And
Hmm.
so I couldn't just get on my phone and play my games. But now that I am home, part of my coffee routine in the morning is to fill it up a few times and then just go through a number of these little word games that I love. And so um I usually start with a game on AARP's website I joined recently. Um it's called Word Wipe, and it takes you through levels, and you have to just with your finger find the words to clear a level, and it gets progressively harder. And anyway, it's timed, and so there's like this urgency to it. And anyway, so I enjoy Word Wipe. And then I go to the New York Times little games. I like Wordle. I
Yeah.
can almost always get it in four. I'm happy if it's less than four.
Yes.
I rarely fail to get it in six. I had a rare fail earlier, like this month, but um,
Have you ever had a one?
no,
So
I've had a
I have
two.
I have had it. I use the same starter words, and
Oh, I
so
don't.
I have only had it the one time because it happened to be my starter word, and I was so happy, made my whole day. My
Yeah.
partner has had it like 6 times, and
Does
I'm like,
she?
that's she uses a different word every day,
Mhm.
and she's just magically hit it 6 times, and I'm like, that's witchcraft. Like, there's
That's
no
amazing.
right.
I'm
It's
jealous.
wild.
Someday I'll hit it,
Yeah, yeah.
but
But I've got a cousin who posts his results. I used to, post mine every day
yeah,
on Twitter and that kind of thing, and I kind of got
when it was
tired of,
new and hot. Yeah.
right. But my cousin still posts his every day on Facebook, and it's gotten me into posting mine as a comment on his,
Yeah.
and he keeps me honest. Like, oh yeah, I'm not doing my streak. Oh yeah, but David's gonna post about his, and he's much better at it than I am. I'm like, if I get four, I'm satisfied. Five, I'm starting to go, and six, I'm terrified.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, I'm a 4, 5, 6 person. But yeah, I love Wordle. That's a fun one.
Yep. Yep. And then they have a little spelling bee thing. It looks like little hexagons that look like honeycomb, and you have to make words there. There's a game called Letterboxed,
I don't know that
and
one. How does that one work?
um there's a box, four-sided box, three letters on each side, and in I think it's six moves, you're supposed to be able to use every letter, but like you can't use the letter that's on the same side consecutively.
Mm,
So if I did like STAR, my next word would have to start with R. And then, they throw weird things in there like cues, and then you have to make it all work. And there's a strategy to it, to be able to make that happen in, I think it's six. I forget. Um, but there's that, the mini crossword. And then if I'm done with that, sometimes I'll go to Peggle. I don't know if you know
mm.
Peggle. Um, and then Candy Crush, I kind of just I got it. It was too much eventually.
Yes,
I
eventually
got
you get to the
pretty
point where you go,
far.
I'm spending too much time on this. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you tried the New York Times Connections?
Oh, I do like that.
That one is hard for me, but
It
when
is
I do
hard.
it, I'm like, yeah, I got and it doesn't keep stats, which simultaneously frustrates me and is a relief. Like, okay,
Yeah.
good. I don't have to
Yeah.
look
No,
back
the
on how many times I
connections are
failed because
hard.
that one's tough. But that one's my son got me into that one, and last week I was talking with Fonda Lee on the show, and that's one of hers.
Hmm.
She's really good at it. I'm learning, but it's fun.
And then there's a history. There's one where you put different historical events in order.
I might be
And
better at that one. I should check that one. What's is that on the Peggle site or is that?
um boy, I get the New York Times like newsletter every
Hmm.
morning. And since I'm signed up for the newsletter, it comes to my mailbox once a week.
Okay.
So anyway, that's a fun one. But I'll confess, I've got a master's in history, American history, and I've taught world history, and I don't often get a
Yeah.
perfect score.
Yeah.
So, but it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the nice thing about those is, it is true that with the word ones, there's a chance you're learning new words. But for you and I mean, especially like with Wordle, I'm not learning
Yeah.
new five-letter words. In fact, often no, having a large vocabulary is a detriment, because they're not going to go with the most, out there, word. They're going to go for more predictable words. But the history ones, you could genuinely be learning. Oh, I
Yeah.
never realized that was before that other thing. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, that's one I'll have to check out.
Yeah. It's fun.
What's a news story that's been pulling you away from your writing lately?
All right. So I know I said that I'm not very sciencey, and that's true, but I love birds, and I'm kind of a backyard identifier, and I'm the person who will, like ask my husband to slow down if I see a cool
Yeah.
bird. And um, anyway, I've not done a big ear or anything like that. Seen the movie, but um, I like birds, and so um, something that just happened recently in Portland is that, and it's going on all across the U.S. There's a controversy about the name Audubon for the Audubon Society, and the big group has decided to keep Audubon as the name of the society. Um, but there are a number of individual groups, local groups, that have decided they're going to change their name because Audubon was a slaveholder. And there's a movement within the birding community to move away from um, that bit of history,
Yeah.
right? And to, anyway, Portland, yay Oregon, right? Yay West Coast, decided that they were going to change their name to simply from Portland Audubon to Bird Alliance of Oregon.
Yeah.
And I like that. It's an alliance, right? It's
Yes.
a
I think is that what New York did as well? I think they were one of the first to move away from Audubon.
maybe what I think about New York is I think about that one
Yes.
um you know what I'm talking about,
Yes,
right?
that
There
case.
was a black man who was out
Yes.
birding in Central Park, and a woman came up and
Yes, I mean, this
um
white woman used the
yeah,
police as a weapon. Like,
yeah,
basically, I know that you will be put in much greater jeopardy because you have annoyed me. And so I'm going to scream and yell and call the police. And he was
right.
really wonderful about it and said
He
to people
was.
who wanted to support him, hey, if you would like to support me, I don't need your money. I didn't end up getting arrested, but you could send money to the Audubon Society of New York. And I mean, I admit I did like, like, sure, I'll send him
Yeah,
$5 or whatever. And so I've been getting those emails, even though I'm not a birder. I was just like, what a
yeah.
great gesture on his part to say,
It
I'm
was
going to
classy.
convert this trauma into something positive, and something that I love, and turned it into a really wonderful thing. And that's where I saw that I think the formerly New York Audubon Society has changed their name, but I'm not sure if it's the New York Bird Alliance or Bird Alliance.
I'm not
Look
sure
that
what
up.
New York did. I know Portland just announced it this week.
Yeah. I think it's
Um
really cool. And I think it is worth kind of reflecting on. There's this feeling people have of threat. And it's like, this is not some external force that is forcing the Bird Alliance to do this. This is people power. This is people
Yeah,
making a decision together to say we don't want to be associated with the, Audubon himself. What was his name? Charles Audubon?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I
and
believe so.
we don't, and that's right. Like, they get to decide who they are as a community, and if they don't want to be associated with him, I think that's wonderful.
I do too. And it's part of a bigger movement of renaming.
Hmm.
There's geographical um, sites that are being renamed to um, oh, get rid of offensive language. I don't want to like mention the offensive language,
Right, right, yes.
but to be more I don't know, sensitive to the fact that sometimes in history there's power that winds up expressing itself in the way we talk about the world.
Right.
And
Well, and there's
um
this misnomer that people will say, there's this myth that if we change things, we are erasing history in some way.
yeah,
And it's like, no, for one thing, often, one of the things that I've heard is, oh, we're taking away this part of history. And the implication is that these things were named in 1865 or 1875 or whatever. And
yeah,
they weren't. They were named in 1930 by members of the KKK. Like this was already a propaganda effort, and this is a deprogramming of a propaganda effort, which is, I'll acknowledge, also propaganda. Like this is correcting a wrong, and that correction is going to feel hostile to some people, but it's
it
correcting
was
a wrong.
hostile to some people in the
Exactly.
first place,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so I would like to think as we become more open and democratic and thoughtful about how we use language in a world where we're always talking to each other, like with social media, you used to have a small little group,
Right.
and but it's a bigger world, and I think it's good to um, be more sensitive
Yeah. And to
to
reconsider
other
these things.
people's perspectives and histories. And yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
there is no harm in, since the change is inevitable anyway, there's no
Yeah,
harm in doing it thoughtfully. Like, yeah,
well
absolutely.
said.
Um,
Well
so
said.
uh so what has been a hobby that pulls you away from your writing?
Well, I was just outside because it's a beautiful day, right? Been waiting for the days to be a little bit sunny and a little bit warmer. And I love being in my yard, but I am also taking Master Gardener
Oh,
classes now through the OSU Extension Office here in Josephine County. And I wanted to do it for years and years and years, become a Master Gardener. But because I was a teacher full time and the classes happened on Thursday afternoons, there was
right.
no way I could do it. So now that I am retired, I am able to do this. And so I've been doing the classes and doing the volunteering because it's a volunteer group as well. And it just makes me think all the time. And spring is coming. And so I'm thinking all the time about um well, today it was pruning and transplanting some little guys, and I planted some seeds um and set up a little, oh, we've got one in our garage. It's just a little greenhouse, but it's
Hmm.
like self-contained. It's not a traditional outside fun greenhouse. It's like you zip it and closed and control
Right,
the
right. But do
moisture
you
and
use
stuff.
it for starts and then
Yeah,
remove those things? Yeah.
yeah. And anyway, then they're totally protected and happy.
Right.
And so
Oh,
I've
I am
planted a
so
couple of
jealous. That I mean
basil plants. Yeah.
my daffodils are just starting, and I saw them while going out to work yesterday and was like, I need to, I need to find the time to get out into my garden. For
Yeah.
years now, I've been growing roses and then taking cuttings, and then I
Hmm.
take the cutting, dip it in a little bit of growth hormone, and literally stick it in the ground like that. It's that easy. But if you do it during the wet season, which we have lots of here in
Yeah.
Oregon in the fall or spring, sometimes they take. And if they don't, it's a little dead stick sticking out of the ground. Okay, I toss it. But some of them go. And so now the front yard is lots of roses that need lots of pruning. I've got a
pruning,
lot of
right,
work to do out there.
right. Yeah, I got stuck the other day
Mm,
doing my pruning of roses. Um, but yeah, you sound like you're kind of an accidental gardener, and I like
exactly.
that. I
Yes.
love that.
This was
Mhm,
an effort to replace. There was a lawn in the front yard, and I was
mhm.
like, and it's very small in front of my house. It's a very small lawn. The larger one is in back, and and I was like, I hate having to take the mower around to the front to
Yeah,
mow this. Let's just remove the lawn and grow flowers. I vastly prefer flowers anyway, and then the roses come back, so they take care of themselves. Except they are a lot of pruning because they
there are a lot of
go
pruning.
nuts.
Yeah, definitely. But it's good results, right?
Yeah.
You get what you put in. You get out
So
of
do
it
you
what you
have
put in.
some big ambitious plans for your garden for this year with this class?
I have had ambitious plans for years and just
Yeah,
never the time. My biggest expansion of my garden actually happened in 2020 when schools shut
yes.
down. And
Same here.
um, yeah, and I had like 2.5 raised beds, and then I added 4 more.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so I've got 6 or 7 raised beds. Um, but I I want to do more natural, well, not natural, um, Pacific Northwest
Yeah.
landscaping. So native, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Native plantings. And I have a lot of grass in the front yard, and it's just this long flag lot, and
Yes.
it's between two ugly pieces, strips of land. And I want to have it just kind of roll and flower and not take too much water, but still be beautiful and still be a pollinator heaven. And so I do have a lot of plans, but it's not going to all happen this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I
So
think
it's
for us as I wonder, for us as teachers, is that harder or easier? Like in some ways, our profession, lends us to this idea of I've got to do it now because this ninth grader only gets this one shot at ninth grade. And so it's got to
right.
be done, it's got to be done, it's got to be done. And a garden forces us to go, slow down. This is going to take years,
Yeah,
which is healthy.
it is. It is. And gardening, you know, saved me when I was just all in my head with
Yes.
teaching, just going out and being in my dirt. And my husband called it, you need to go play in your dirt, don't you? I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Were
um,
you, I was noticing this yesterday. You were the president of the OPA and you were in your local. What was your position in the union? Because you were involved in
I
the
was I was doing everything.
all
Oh
at
my gosh.
once. I was look
Well,
I
because I say yes to everything and I
yep.
love everything, and I have a fear of missing out. I don't want to
Mhm.
not have an experience that's there to have. And so, yeah, I overcommit. And then I'm happy that I've done the things and I have the experience, but I get exhausted sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was OPA, a board member, and it was never my intention to like ascend.
Right.
I just wanted to be one of the at-large board members, help out here and there a little bit. Um, and then the second year, um, they said they wanted me to be president the second year, and I said I can't do that because it was right in the middle of the pandemic, and I was
Yeah.
wrecked from just the changes at school.
Yeah, I
And
don't think folks, I mean, I'm actually, I shouldn't say that. I bet a lot of folks do understand, but they don't understand it very differently. But in
right,
different professions, you experience this differently. But for teachers, switching the way we did everything all at once
everything.
was overwhelming. I mean, I suppose that was the case in many professions, but yeah, it was really, really jarring. And so folks thought, oh, we're slacking and we're at home. No, we're totally relearning how to do our jobs. It was really challenging.
And then when we came back, we had to not only do the work in class, but we had to also stream in the Zoomers
Yep.
from home. And so our jobs doubled.
Yeah.
And in a way, right, you had to manage more technology than ever. And we had to have everything online with a whole new program, and we'd never done that before. And, you know, so I'm doing that. I'm working for Oregon Poetry Association, and it's a working board. It is not You
Yeah.
know, you vote on a couple things every once in a while, like some boards are. You are doing the work.
They're,
Um,
they're the main volunteers who are doing everything, or is the board. Like
yeah,
it's really
that's
remarkable.
how OPA runs. And anyway, and then I was also the head advocate for my district.
Yeah.
Um, so I was sitting in on, you know, plans of assistance meetings, and I was writing grievances, and I was, attending those meetings too, because I was on the executive board and,
At a
you know,
particularly difficult time. I mean, when all
yeah.
these teachers were thrown into chaos, different teachers
Hmm.
handled it differently. And there were times when during the lockdowns, I would say to folks from around the state, they were experiencing the same thing. I would say, in other professions, people are quiet quitting, and some of our members are dumb quitting. Like they would be so overwhelmed that they would, and I complete, and I understand,
I
but
get
they
it.
would go, I'm going to, turn to narcotics. I'm going to, be, missing my own Zoom sessions, whatever,
Ooh,
because they
yeah.
were going, I am just not in a good headspace and I need someone to fire me. Like I need to get out of this, but I
Hmm.
don't have it in me to say I can't be a teacher right now. And so
Right,
then we were having to defend those folks and say, this person needs help and not
right.
punishment. But boy, that was challenging sometimes when the person was really saying, I need to get out and I need you to coach me out. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was a really, really difficult part. You took that on at the hardest time.
I was the advocate for 8 years, my last 8 years. So yeah, I did a
You
lot.
saw that difference. I mean, that was
Woo,
tough
it
to
was
watch.
huge. And you are an advocate still?
Yes, I'm the in our local we have a position that's past president. So I've done the president twice, and now this year I'm past president. But the person who was I'm on the negotiations team, and the person who was the chair of the negotiations team got his admin license, and we
Oh,
joke, he went to the dark side. Great guy,
yes, he
not
did.
really the dark side, but he's now going to be on the other side of the table. So I became the negotiation. So I'm past president and negotiations chair again.
Mhm.
And we're between contract negotiations, which is nice. For many, many years, we were doing like 1 or 2 year contracts. So it felt like we were perpetually in negotiation, and we finally
Yeah,
did 4. So we've got a little breathing
can
room. And the only
rest.
thing we're having to do right now is we're having
The
to change our
reopener.
insurance, which is not the district's fault. The insurance company we were with is got its own issues and we have to switch. So we're negotiating changing insurance this year. And these are the kinds of
That's a
things that,
lot of work.
on
Hmm.
top of being a publisher and being a writer, and I mean, it's a lot.
Well, yeah, I look at you and all the things you do, and I'm amazed. It's like I don't know
But
how
you've
you do
been
it
there. I
all.
mean,
Yeah.
of anyone I know, like I think you're, with the OPA and the was it GPEA? What was your local?
Yep. Yeah, GPEA.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and and the OEA work that extends from that. So folks listening, our national union is the NEA, National Education Association, and then our state union is the Oregon Education Association, and then we have regional kind of areas. So like they're called uniserve districts. And then within those uniserve districts, every school district, or sometimes a district and a half, 2 districts, will be a local union. And so the GPEA, what does that stand for? Is that the
Grants Pass Education
Oh, okay. Yep.
Association.
Yep. And mine is the CEA, but we've got a bunch of CEAs. Our CEA is the Central Education Association. And so, yeah, this is a ton of work, advocating for our colleagues and ultimately advocating for our kids. Like that's the point
Yeah,
of a teachers union is how do we make the best possible schools for our kids because the best possible schools for our kids are the best places to work. So, those two things go hand in hand. But yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah, thank you
it is.
for those
Oh,
years of
thank
work for
you.
your colleagues. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
No, it was good work. It was good work, and I was happy that I was able to help and that I had the skills to communicate effectively and to push back against administration when they needed some pushback.
Often they
Um,
just need training. They haven't been
that is
administrators as
true.
long as we have been teachers, and
There
sometimes
were
we have to
some
teach them how to be administrators.
there were some baby administrators
Yeah.
who
Yep.
needed, Yeah,
they're learning,
needed
and
some
you know,
learnings.
sometimes they get bad instruction. I think what happens sometimes is they come in and somebody
They
says,
wing
that
it.
building, you really need to bring down the hammer. And
Hmm.
they're going, I'm brand new to this and I've been told to be mean. And we have to
Mm,
say to them, being mean is not going to work for you.
yeah.
Like, yeah. So one of the questions I always ask writers, and this is just because this is kind of a Rorschach test, is
Mm.
if you yourself were a Dungeons and Dragons character, what would be your race and class?
Okay, so um, I played Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid, but it's been a good long time um, since I played. What I remember most about Dungeons and Dragons is being really fascinated with the whole um, idea, not of race and class so much, but of, like, are you chaotic good
Oh
or are
yeah.
you, you know, um, I don't know, lawful evil or
Yes.
whatever it is. And I always wanted to be, I had things that I wanted to be. I loved the idea of chaotic good. I think because I wasn't so chaotic, I was
Mhm.
pretty lawful and I tried to be good. Um, but I love the idea of chaotic good. Um, anyway, there's that. And I loved the idea of being an elf because they live a long time. They're beautiful. Um, and they're very connected to the natural world.
Mhm.
And I always liked the idea of knowing potions and elixirs and what
An
magic
Accidental
the
Hero, a
trees
mostly
had.
true
And
wombat story by
so
Laura Rediger
I'm
and
gonna
Debbie
have to
Palin, is
say
based on
that
events
I
during the
would like
aftermath
to
of the
be
Australian
an elf.
bushfires in 2020.
um and
Rescuers
then what would I
discovered
do with that?
animals sheltering in
um
wombat burrows. Wombats were praised
so
for
I
providing a
grew
safe
up
refuge
watching
underground.
like
While
early
they didn't
70s
invite other
cheesy
wildlife into
TV,
their
and so
homes,
there was
they
this
did truly
one
become
show,
accidental heroes. The book
um
is written as a
Kung
newscast, with
Fu.
Oh
Koala and
yeah.
And
Emu at the news desk.
David
Field
Carradine
reporter
was like the
Kangaroo
master, and
introduces readers to Wombat
he
and her
had
new
this
friends.
staff
An
that was
Accidental
also a
Hero, a
flute,
mostly true
and you would
wombat
see him
story
go
by
off
Laura Rediger and Debbie
into
Palin. A
the
STEM picture book
sunset or
published by
whatever at the end of
iFrig
a show,
Publishing,
and he
available at
had done battle with
ifrigpublishing.com
his
or
staff,
wherever
which
books are
doesn't
sold.
seem
For
so
more about
violent.
the
It
author,
seems
go to
just very
lauraredigerbooks.com.
I don't know, in tune with your body and movement and physics and that sort of thing. And then he would play his instrument, which was also his weapon. And I loved that. And I played flute. And so that was cool that your weapon could also be the thing that you created with. And so he was kind of my standard for what an elf might be.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't an elf, he was, a white guy playing an Asian character.
Yeah, for folks who
But
don't know the backstory of that, Bruce Lee pitched that show to Hollywood and said, "What if we had a kung fu expert who was wandering the American West? Americans love westerns. This
yeah,
is a western, but with kung fu, and it's played by me." And the Hollywood said, "That's a wonderful idea, except we cannot possibly have you as the star. We have to get a white guy." And so they had a white guy who was supposed to be Asian playing in it undermined the kind of veracity of the show, but it was still a cool show.
I
Yes.
loved the show as a kid,
Yeah.
right? Where I'm just absorbing this. And then, there was the wise master who
Yeah, they
called
would
him
cut back to
Grasshopper.
these
Huh?
flashbacks of his
Yeah,
training. Yeah.
yeah. And so I loved that. So I think that became kind of my template for what D&D should be. It's like,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally.
um right, wandering and doing good in the world, and yet you're still very centered. So like I say, I think elf, I think some kind of monk is
Mhm.
probably what I
Yeah.
would be. And anyway, that's
Yeah.
where I think. How about you?
Oh yeah, for me, I don't, it's funny. I ask this question every week, and I am not sure what I would be. So I would have to give that some thought, because I, like you, I think chaotic good sounds cool, and I want to be, fun, Like
Right.
doing, I certainly find that when I play any kind of role-playing game, video game or whatever, that is the real sandbox where you can be good or evil or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I don't enjoy evil choices. Like it
Nope.
makes me feel guilty, and I probably need to process that a lot more with my therapist about, how much of that is my Judeo-Christian upbringing and
Hmm.
guilt culture and all that. But but yeah, I want to be good, but also I am finding as I get older, I do like my life to be more orderly than the people I
Mm-hmm.
admire are. Like I
Mm-hmm.
look at people who are more chaotic and I'm like, they're cool. I want to be like that. And I'm like, no, but I do want to have a kind of system, and I do take comfort in things being, more regular and orderly than I like to admit. So yeah, I might be a more paladin, than I want to confess to. But yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you've been ambushed. So you're walking through the woods, playing your flute, and three, these are level 1 goblins, jump out and are menacing. What do you do?
Okay. So they're not actually attacking, they're just menacing.
Well, it seems they're going to attack. You could attack
Okay.
first.
Hmm. I am probably going to evaluate the situation. I'm just not somebody who acts quickly, so I'm not going to attack first because who knows? I got to see. And if they're level 1, I'm not really in terrible danger. I might take some damage, but I think I need to wait and see what's going on. If they do attack, first um thing is to like dodge, right? I don't need to, it's the whole yin yang thing, right?
Yeah,
That
the kind
there's
of way of
power
water,
in
right? Yeah.
right. Power in fading away. Because then they expend their energy and you are still free and you haven't engaged and you still have opportunity then to do whatever. Negotiate or, I don't know. That would have to roll out and see. But I think that would be my approach. But I would fight. I'd have to hit them with my flute. If
Yeah.
if they hit me, if
I
they
love that
really
weapon.
were menace, huh?
I love that weapon. That's a great idea. And that might be a bardic weapon.
Yeah.
You've got, this but I like the idea of a monk with a bardic weapon, like playing the flute as a staff. And at some point, yeah, I'm gonna have to whack you.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's how I would handle that.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, well, we're going to go
Thank
to
you.
our commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you what you've been daydreaming about lately. Special announcement time. NotAPipe Publishing has always been committed to helping authors and readers find one another. Well, this show, which is all about helping readers get to know writers, just hit a milestone: 10,000 views on YouTube. So to celebrate, instead of charging authors to advertise their books on the show, I'm going to run your ads for free throughout 2024. If you want to make a 30 to 60-second video about your book, let folks know what it's about and where to find it, and don't forget your name and the title. I'll run 1 or 2 of those in our ad spot each week. Just send an MP4 file to the NotAPipe email address in the show notes. Let's fix up some readers and authors into reader relationships. 2024. More readers, more writers, more books.
Hello, my name is Fred Gambino. I've worked in the story industry for 4 decades as a film and game concept artist and a book cover artist. My love of story has led me to write my debut novel, Dark Shepherd, to be published by Newcom Press in May 2024. A fast-paced science fiction action thriller, it opens on the beach, where starships are crashed from orbit in order to break them up. Breel is in charge of several giant dismantling machines, and her job is to further take apart the shattered ships. Semi-freelance, she is one of many teams who work the beach, making money on the load she collects and sends to central processing. But the beach is a difficult place. Subject to misogyny and racism, she is unjustly fired, setting off a sequence of events that leads to her fleeing across the galaxy in the company of a ragtag group of misfits, pursued by agents of the ruthless and politically powerful Church of Second Light for a secret she didn't know she possessed. Only Breel can locate a mysterious rip, a wormhole that will leave humanity vulnerable to an ancient enemy, and only she stands a chance of closing it. Available for pre-order now at www.newcompress.co.uk.
An Accidental Hero, a mostly true wombat story by Laura Rediger and Debbie Palin, is based on events during the aftermath of the Australian bushfires in 2020. Rescuers discovered animals sheltering in wombat burrows. Wombats were praised for providing a safe refuge underground. While they didn't invite other wildlife into their homes, they did truly become accidental heroes. The book is written as a newscast, with koala and emu at the news desk. Field reporter Kangaroo introduces readers to Wombat and her new friends. An Accidental Hero, a mostly true wombat story by Laura Rediger and Debbie Palin. A STEM picture book published by iFrig Publishing, available at ifrigpublishing.com or wherever books are sold. For more about the author, go to lauraredigerbooks.com.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Jennifer, what have you been daydreaming about lately?
All right. So, since I retired, and that was just back in summer, I'm getting better sleep, which means that because I can sleep in, and when I wake up, I'm not stressed about getting to school and, the whole workaday life and get my kid to school. And it's just, you get up and you're immediately in your day, planning, thinking what needs to happen next. And there's no time to just lay there and think about what you dreamed or, what you might do with the day. It's already set. You just got to get to it. So I have had time to think about dreams and to pay attention to dreams again. I did a lot of that in my 20s when I was, not so stressed with work, didn't have a family. I did a lot of dream work and interpretation, and I'm able to get back to that. And I mentioned earlier in the show that one of the first things I do when I'm writing in the morning is to write down dreams.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times it doesn't make sense and it doesn't go anywhere, but sometimes there's a gem of a feeling or a question that pops up, and then I have something to think about for the whole day and many days.
Yeah.
And so I'm really enjoying that. Some recent dream imagery that's been showing up are large animals. And it's new. I haven't had like a series of large animal dreams before. And so I know that something has to be going on, psychologically, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'm thinking and thinking and thinking about these large animals and the contexts and what it could all mean. But a few nights ago, there were escaped gorillas in the neighborhood, and they were attacking people. And I wasn't necessarily in danger, but they were big and scary. And then I had a dream where there was a cougar, and it had crouched, and it was looking at me and my husband, and all of these deer and then these wild horses that were blue and white were like walking by this cougar, and it didn't care about any of those big animals. It wanted my husband and me. And we stood shoulder to shoulder and walked into the house. Anyway, I don't have to tell you all my dreams, but
no, but that's really cool. Like those,
cool?
there is a lot to plumb there, right? I mean, that really is fascinating.
Yeah. And anyway, they're powerful animals. They're big animals. The horses and the deer were beautiful, but then there's these predatory, dangerous ones. And it's like, what are big animals doing in these dreams, walking through? And anyway, so I don't know what they are.
I wonder to what extent, how, I mean, you've got the gorillas are attacking, but the cougar is still, how much of that is, and who knows, we're always speculating about these things, but you are at this place where you are experiencing this big change in the pace of your life, and you've got this power, but often not moving, right? That's interesting to think about, how much are you the cougar? How much are you the giant, the gorilla that is menacing and powerful, but now can move slowly?
Well, that's really lovely. I had forgotten that that's actually one way to get into dream work is to imagine that you are all the characters.
Right.
So like I am my husband in the dream, I am even the landscape
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
all
So
the
why the
elements.
neighborhood in one? And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, I it's great stuff to think about.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I want to plummet for poetry. I've been trying to get something out of there, a feeling or an image. We'll see. I'm pretty sure that'll be a rich field to
Yeah.
mine. So,
Yeah, that's cool. So before we go, we have to make sure we tell folks about your announcement. So, what is coming up for you professionally?
so I have a book coming out this month, February 20th. It drops. It's available for pre-order right now. It is Present and Speaking Everywhere from NotAPipePublishing. Thank you, Ben. Yay!
Oh, beautiful. Folks are just going to, and so when folks are looking at it and they're going, oh, that this looks kind of, like I don't know if they can see that this is found poetry on top of other text that you found and
Mhm.
then pulled this poetry out of it. And folks who know found poetry, this will be very familiar, but folks who have not seen this, it is a really cool form. So the poetry is what you are discovering, and then much of the book is about that theme of discovering the beauty in the world around us as you're doing that very thing. So it's just it's a marvelous book. I really enjoy it, and it is. I think one of the cool things about it is the way it turned out. It looks like a children's book. It is
Yeah,
very much for adults, but it's a book about wonder. And so it's fine that it looks like a children's book. It feels appropriate that it's like, this is a book that I
mhm.
can, it's not something I would read to a child. I think they would go, I don't get it.
Right.
But as an adult, that kind of nostalgia for a children's shaped book fits the experience.
It's
So yeah,
it's a different kind of book. And I think, yeah, I love that, you have that idea that it's a children's book. The pictures are big.
yeah,
And if I do say so myself, the more you look at the pictures, the more you can pull out because not all the words are obscured.
right.
And sometimes the words that you're not supposed to see enhance, right?
Yes.
They're the background against which the other words really come forward. And there is an interplay, and there's just a whole lot of um, you can read it through very quickly and still be inspired, I think, and lifted up. A lot of it's very positive, um, while being realistic at the same time, I think. But then if you wanted to look at each poem individually, there's a lot to see,
Yeah.
just to even see what pieces I was working from.
Yeah. And
It's
one of the
fun.
things I admired about it is that that it is positive and realistic. I think I would have, if it had been saccharine, I would have been like, oh, I don't like this. But
Right,
there is this very, real, the fact that I wouldn't read this to a child. Like this is, there's a kind of gritty realism and hope, which is what
yeah,
I like in my literature. I don't want somebody saying,
right,
here's a Hallmark card poem. But at the same
right,
time, I don't want something that's just saying it's all hopeless. Like,
right,
and so I really like the way that how do we do the work of finding the beauty and the magic, right? And
right.
the book is literally that. Like you're holding this testament to doing the hard work of looking for the beauty. It's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
I'm really pleased. Thank you so much for helping to bring it into the world.
Oh yeah, my it is an honor. I am glad to get to be associated with this book at all. So I did want to ask you about there's this new thing that I've taken on. I am frustrated with the fact that as I am looking at the world around me, I think the kind of outrage machine, kind of algorithmic speaking, has created this kind of juxtaposition between the need to get attention and the need to be, offensive, whatever, to such a degree that people now are saying things that they don't, I don't know if they believe. Maybe this person believes this thing, and maybe this is the hottest take for attention that they could possibly give. And so to both satirize that and lean into it, which I recognize is ironic, what is your hottest take that will generate outrage and get you attention? And we'll post this and say, here's this giant controversy that Jennifer Rood started.
All right. Well, the Red Cross has been sending out emails that there's a blood shortage, right? And that happens ever so often. And my husband is getting all of these cards that say you need to come in and give blood, because he gives blood. He's a veteran, and he happens to have O negative blood, which is the universal donor. So anyway, the Red Cross is after him. There are all kinds of different blood types, right? And there is one particular kind of person who has a particular kind of blood type that doesn't go to anybody else. They're kind of selfish about their blood. AB positive blood type people are just takers. That's my hot take, is that the AB positive people are takers. Their blood isn't good. And so
yours can only go to somebody else who's AB positive, right?
Yeah, and I'm a taker, right? Yep. So I'm speaking from experience that AB positive people are takers. Yeah, my blood can only go to other people with my blood, and it's a pretty rare blood type. It's like 3%, I think, is correct, of people have it. And my mom, who worked in the blood lab, phlebotomy, and anyway, she worked in the lab. She told me, it's like, don't even bother giving blood. It's like, she said, it will go bad on the shelf. It's like, your blood won't be used. And
because
so
my understanding is people who are AB positive can receive from everyone. Right?
I can take. I'm a taker. Any blood is good for me. So yeah. So that's really great for me if I'm ever in an accident or need a transfusion.
Yes, so Mitt Romney was right. Some people are just takers, but he was wrong about whom. It's the AB positive people are the takers.
You got to watch out for them.
Okay, see, this is the controversy. We're going to start.
Right.
We're going to get this to be trending.
AB positive people are
all AB positive people are just takers. I love it. That's great. So where can our listeners find you when you aren't writing your books? Although yours is related to your books, where can folks find you online?
All right. So I have an Instagram account. It's at Jenrood, JENNROOD 100. So lots of doubles there. 2 N's, 2 O's, 2 zeros at the end. Jenrood 100. And I post I just post my found poetry stuff there. Yeah. So it's the stuff that would be related to what's in the book. And you don't get a lot of, here's me at the beach, or there's none of that. It's just really, if you're interested in seeing more of my found poetry, that's where you can go.
Yeah, well, and it's a wonderful kind of teaser for, if you like this, you will love this book. So I highly recommend folks check out your Instagram there. So before we get to our send-off, there's some folks I have to thank. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song. That's I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. And thanks to Halizna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band and you'd like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song. So email that to NotAPipePublishing@gmail.com. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making the show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. We always appreciate you, Doug. And I cannot forget to mention Writers Not Writing is a production of NotAPipePublishing. So please go to NotAPipePublishing.com and check out the amazing books written by writers like Jennifer, who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it. And please check out Jennifer's Present and Speaking Everywhere. Tell a friend about it. give it a, short, click that 5th star, give it a short review. It makes a huge difference. So if you've got 3 minutes, make Jennifer's day. Give her book a 5-star review. And I am too old to tell you to smash that like button, but if you could gently tap on the like button an odd number of times, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you write a fun review, I'm going to start sharing more of those at the beginning of the show too. So please consider writing a review of our show. Those are always fun. So Jennifer, as folks go into their week, what's a piece of advice you want to give everybody?
Oh my goodness. Poetry is everywhere. All you got to do is look. That's don't forget to look for the poetry. It's everywhere.
Completely agree. And I always say a poem without line breaks isn't written in verse. Our lives need line breaks to be the best poems we can make them. So mind those line breaks. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you.
If I take my time, I make up my